Hello my friends, I'm Rich Larson and I'm the IRC Tire Guy. Today we are here live with the Rieju MR Racing 300. I am very excited for this test. It's been a long time coming now. As you guys know, I have tested the MR Ranger 300. That bike was a lot of fun. It's more of an entry-level bike. I think the vast majority of riders would love that machine. But we wanted a little bit more. We wanted a little bit more power. And we have this beautiful racing machine. I am very excited to test this. Now, as you can see, I kind of parked it precariously on this cliff because I wanted to get the majesty of it, right? Y'all know about majesty? This is gonna be a fun test today. I haven't really put any time on this bike. I rode it from here to here. I did a little jetting at my house, did a couple wheelies. I will say, from where I parked to this gnarly side hill, I feel very comfortable as far as ergonomically, the way that the bike feels. It's very similar to the Husky that I've been putting so much time on. And honestly, even just adapting to say a Husky to a Beta, which I've done a video on, the difference in the two bikes, they feel very different. Whereas this is a little bit easier of a transition. The Husky that I've been putting a lot of time on, now to the Rieju. So this is a 2024 Rieju MR Racing 300. I got this bike from Power Chicken Off-Road. They're the dealer of Rieju in Heber, Utah. Colin at Power Chicken knows everything about these bikes. He's a rad dude. He's been putting a lot of time on them. He tests, he changes parts. He's been doing so much stuff, which I have a plan to do quite a bit with this bike. And he's an awesome dude. He knows the ins and outs of everything about these bikes. So that's been really fun talking to him about the differences in the machine, all of that. It's been really interesting. Just a little bit of time that I've put on it. It's like, okay, this feels like an older, maybe, you know, KTM 2014. I had a 2014 and a 2016. That kind of frame, it feels like that. So it was very easy for me to adapt to quickly in just this short little ride that I did. It's a kind of a gnarly little trail that I was kind of chugging across, and a few down trees. Feel really solid. I've jetted the bike a little bit. I think we're gonna go a little deeper into that today. But yeah, we're gonna get right into it. This is the first time I've done a real serious test on a brand new bike, jumping right into the gauntlet, right? So we're gonna get into the hard enduro. We're going up there. So we're gonna get into the gnarly stuff. We're gonna feel how this thing handles it. We're gonna test the clutch. We're gonna test the jetting. We're gonna test the engine, see how this thing does. I've got a lot of plans with this bike, and we'll talk more as we kind of go through. I threw IRC tires on. We've got a VX40 front and the new GX20 rear, which is coming out in November. We're gonna do a whole thing on all of these tires. You guys can see what tires are coming out in November right here. Check that video out. That being said, this is the new FIM spec 140 80 18 GX20, the first FIM spec from IRC. So we're going to be doing a little bit of testing on that. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure on my Moose setup, but nah, whatever. It'll be a good excuse when I screw things up for you guys. I'm excited. We're going to get into the testing. We're going to ride down into this riverbed, start there, get some riverbed feel, see how the suspension performs, hopefully get some nice chug, some bottom end power, a good test there. Then we're gonna get up into the woods, get some switchbacks, get some hill climbs, and see how this thing does. So without further ado, let's get into it of the test of the Rieju MR 300 racing machine. All right. Hardest part about filming yourself is hiking and getting everything set up. It just takes so long. So much work. A couple guys asked what I use. This is called the OBS Bot. They actually don't make this model anymore. It's called the OBS Bot Tail, I think. I don't know, but it works really well. Yeah, so we're going at it. I'm gonna just be hiking up and down and getting shots of this creek. Now, I'm feeling like I'm still kind of getting used to the engagement point of the clutch. This is a Magura clutch. It feels pretty good. A decently soft pull for a 6-spring. I can tell this is a 6-spring clutch, not the Belleville like on the KTMs or the Beta. The traditional 6-spring does tend to wear a little bit faster, and it has a very specific feel. Every time I get on a bike with a 6-spring, I know it's a 6-spring right away. We're feeling it out here. Like I said, my Moose setup, I'm not 100% convinced on it, but I went up a riverbed, a little like ledge back there, and it actually felt pretty good. So we'll see. Here we go. Low power. That's stuck pretty dang good. We're gonna just creep up this. I'm not like racing it. I'll kind of talk you guys through it. Little ledge here. We'll listen for a nice snap. Lug. Yeah, not bad. Good little snap there. Yeah, nice and clean. Didn't feel loaded. We'll see how it goes as we kind of continue forward. I don't know if you guys can see this ledge. We're gonna go for it here. Oh yeah, that feels nice. Not bad at all. Just took me a little bit. Walk up and down, walk up and down. So you guys get a taste of what I have to deal with. See the camera kind of, hopefully it caught that little step. Probably didn't. We'll see. So this was a cool little kind of pivot that I did there. Just because it's like a bike length. So I'm actually gonna lift front really early. And that early lift of the front allows me to maintain tractable pressure as I kind of cut around this sharp little corner, instead of driving in and then being so close to the wall that I can't get the front into the air. So I'll do that again. Here we go. Inside, lift, pressure. Very nice. That worked well. I was a little sloppy on that, but not too bad. You can see there, I try to get an early lift. That way, if I level out and run into the wall, I'm so close to the wall, it's hard to get the front end into the air, then up that little bit of a ledge. Whereas if I lift super early, I can just keep that pressure back, keep that momentum, keep that traction on the rear tire, give it a good burst and a good snap, and get it dialed in. Let's move on. So as I've gone from section to section in this riverbed, I definitely feel the rear shock feels really good. This is a KYB rear shock. It's hooking really well. It's settling really well. I definitely like the way it feels. The forks, I could say maybe I would go a little bit softer on the clickers on the forks. Honestly, I didn't even set anything. I just left it. I'm so excited to test this thing. I'm just like, let's jump on it and test it. Maybe a little more sag too. Seems like I might be able to add a little bit more sag in the rear, but honestly, the rear feels really, really good. I like that KYB shock. It works really well. I remember when Beta changed to the KYB shock in 23, I believe, and it's a noticeable difference. I think it's better. That being said, the forks feel really plush. They feel good. I might go a little softer because I think they can handle even more. Going softer and finding that ability to still hold up on those hard hits. That being said, we got a little bit of a riverbed here. I know it's kind of washed out on the video, you know, that's how this camera films. It is what it is. I'm here to put out content. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a film major. We got a little bit of a riverbed here. I don't know, the sun's kind of making it tough on my tracking. Super, super bright today, so we'll see. We want to feel this bike hold traction, how it lugs, how it's feeling. So far, so good. We're going to talk more about it as we get a little deeper into the riverbeds. Here we go. I mean, that's just impressive, honestly. The way it felt coming up that, super planted. I felt like I used less throttle there than I kind of expected myself to. And it just tracked the whole way. That felt really good. Let's do it again. Just cuz. Ooh boy. That VX40 front. Oh no, it didn't track me. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Let's see. As I said there, it was kind of struggling to track me, so I changed angles here. On the top though, I said, man, that's impressive. Really tractable. I felt like I used less throttle coming up through that. It was really just holding, and yeah, it's nice to know you can kind of back down on the throttle and this thing just keeps chugging along. Always looking for that tractability, that ability to drop the RPM nice and low. So far, so good with the Rieju. Oh, that's how slick that is. So I was really trying to push the limit there of how slow I could go. Let's do a little unstuck technique up this waterfall. Oops. There's that stall we were talking about. I think it's probably more me. I'm just trying to like make sure that I'm putting the clutch in the right place. I'm not quite engaging it. I don't think it's jetting. Could be. Let's try that again. I just focused on being on the throttle, on the clutch a little more. As I said, I'm still adapting. I mean, this is the first ride on this thing. There it is again. Just trying to get used to it, right? And like I said, I don't think that's the bike. I think it's more just me trying to adapt to how much clutch engagement and how little throttle I can give. Ooh, it's slick here. That VX40 front hooks really well on these downhill slick situations like this. Feels good. Nice and low. I mean, the bike's allowing me to get down into that bottom power where it actually holds traction really well. I mean, that's what we want on stuff like this, you know? We want it to be as low in the power as possible. This stuff is super. I mean, you saw the one that I kind of messed up on. This stuff is really slick, and it's tracking really, really well. I will say with that stall, I feel like maybe it's a little bit of clutch, but on the other side, I'm like, maybe it's not clutch, maybe it's just jetting. Like I said, I just left the stock needle. I think it's an N1EF. That might be right. I changed the clip. I did lean it out a little bit. We went to a 38 Pilot and a 168 main. That being said, I do feel like it could go a little bit leaner, and I'm wondering if a leaner needle might work. But regardless of that, that might be what that stall is coming from. The other side is this is a 38 millimeter carb. Most of the hard enduro bikes that I've put time on in the past are 36 mil key and carbs, right? So even the Alfredo Gomez version, which is the Rieju, that's like the hard enduro version, the Alfredo Gomez version, that I think they only made 100 of, that one has a 36 mil carb. Now, that being said, could the 38 be causing that? I will say in high speed, this stuff really does, this bike revs out like crazy. Just the little testing that I did in my street, I'm like, dang, this thing is super, super fast. So does that mean that the 38 is allowing it to rev out all the way? I would assume. And maybe it's holding it back and causing it to stall a little bit in those technical hard enduro sections. I don't know. Could be, but we're going to keep moving through and finding out exactly how well this thing performs in these continued riverbeds. I do have to say, riding a carb again, I like it. I like it more than the TBI. And I haven't even jetted this thing. Yeah, there's something real specific about the way the bike runs. It seems more predictable, which is crazy. But it never throws anything that I'm like, why is it doing that? If I hear something, I can go, oh, it's too rich, I can change it. You know, you can do that with some of the computer stuff that you can add to the TBI, but I don't know, man. I'm a carb guy for sure. I know a lot of guys hate that, but I'm a carb guy because I hold balance in a riverbed. All right, let's get this section. All right, so we are moving on to the next little section here. We have a nice waterfall. This is a tough little spot where it's a little bit off camber, it's a little slick, it's good to have momentum. I'm gonna have to hold momentum into it. Hopefully I can get it right. It's always a tough one, you know, it's especially when we're doing it, setting up a camera and talking. If I'm just greasing, I can get it every time, I just go fast. But when you kind of stop and start thinking about what you're doing, it makes it a little more challenging. The biggest thing we're looking for here is where our gearing's at. I've already kind of felt that as we go through. I believe we're a little bit too tall for what we're doing here as the stock gearing runs. I'm not really sure what this is. I'm just glancing down there for the first time looking at it. I think that's about 1349.50 maybe. I'll look and tell you. We'll see how close I am. I'm probably way off. I think we could shorten it up just a little bit and it would pull a little bit better. This is too steep for it to pull second, so I'm gonna be, all through every section that you guys have seen, I'm in first gear. Let's find out. Kind of a new log here, and it's funny, it's just in the right place to make your life hard. As they all are. All right, nice and smooth here. I don't know, we'll see how this kind of goes. It's nice to have a nice smooth run in and have pace into this. I might just reset there, just because it's probably gonna be a little slick coming up. And as I said, I'm not 100% convinced on my moose setup. It's a little bit too, there's too much volume in there. I think cutting it and customizing it a little more would help me out, but it's all good. Yeah, even just right there, as I kind of came up that, we'll just do this piece by piece. As I kind of came up that, I felt like it's a little bit too tall. So let's take a look now that we're actually in a place I can see. 13, I was right. God, I wish companies would print the dang tooth on the side of the sprocket instead of making me figure it out. Help a brother out. Freaking get 50. Gosh, I was right. Dang, I was right on just by looking at it. So it is, it's a 1350. I would say probably going even to a 12 on the front would make a pretty big difference. I think that would be a pretty dang good setup. It would probably be able to handle pulling second when you have pace, and still have a usable first. Personally, I like to have a usable first gear. This is a little bit too tall where I'm really having to focus on like kind of riding the clutch a bit. And you know, you want to get off of the clutch. The more you can get off of the clutch, the easier it's going to be for you to hold traction through obstacles. So this is a good little climb here. We're going to come up this, set up, hopefully get the pace, and there's kind of a, you can kind of make it up and side hill across if you don't get a good run in. We'll see what happens. I mean, you know, I rode this bike for 5 seconds, so don't be surprised if I'm pushing up the face of this thing. There we go. Not bad. Really smooth. Probably didn't track me though, did it? Gosh, I hope it did. That'd be just lovely if it caught me going up that. So hopefully that worked. I don't know if you guys can catch me. They're tracking me now. That was decent. Good run. Solid pace. I just came in fast and let that bike chug. Yeah, it seems like it's a little bit tall. I mean, the speed that I had there in first gear was pretty noticeable. I would want it to be a little bit shorter on the gearing, probably maybe 1352 or even 1250. But yeah, let's move on. This is the last little bit of riverbed we got. This is more like a high speed section. Usually on the Husky, I'm in second, but like I said, this gearing's a little too tall. Husky, I'm running 1349, which, you know, as far as sprockets go, is obviously taller than this. But obviously transmissions are different. This is why when everybody asks me what gear should I be in, it's hard for me to answer because every transmission's different, every final drive is different, and everybody's running different gearing. So that being said, I'm gonna be in first the whole way through. You're gonna see the speed in which I can hopefully catch in first gear. That last little waterfall, I was pretty dang impressed with the GX20 here. As I said, I don't have the moose setup that I really like right now. So this thing's working really well. Here we go. Yeah, a lot of snap. Guys, we made our transition into the woods, out of the riverbeds. Bike felt good, man. I'm pretty stoked on it for not putting any time at all on it. Having pretty good confidence riding through some of the slick sections. Like I said, I could change my moose setup and probably be even more dialed, but we're into the woods now. So this is where we're gonna work the clutch a little bit harder. Now, I could already tell as we get into those riverbeds, again, I mentioned this is a 6-spring clutch, a traditional 6-spring clutch. The characteristics that you feel with the traditional 6-spring is, with the 6-spring, it's a little bit louder, especially as we get into the bottom of the power. So once I find momentum, I try to get out with the clutch to maintain that momentum, right? Because if I'm going in and out, I'm gonna be spinning on the rear tire. So once I establish momentum, I try to almost stay off of the clutch a little bit. As you start to chug out into the outside of the friction zone, and also because this gearing is a little bit too tall for hard enduro specifically, we're gonna hear a little bit louder sound with the clutch. It's gonna sound a low vibration, a low rumble that you'll hear on the bottom of the clutch. That's how every 6-spring clutch that I've ever tested does. The Bellevilles are a little bit quieter and they feel a little bit smoother. You can almost feel it through your hands with the 6-spring. You know, it's tried and true. It's been used forever, but I think as this bike develops, and the cool thing about Rieju is they are developing these bikes, I think we probably will see, probably on all of the technical and hard enduro bikes, a Belleville washer on the clutch. Belleville spring, right? So, a little bit of a climb here. I mean, this is all pretty mellow stuff. We're gonna get into maybe some more climbs that's actually gonna work the clutch a little bit more. We've got a little off-camber log here, making sure we always keep that front tire high so the rear tire doesn't drop off of the trail. Low power, nice and smooth. Nice lug there. Sounded good. Keeping it down in the bottom. Chugging. Now we got a little bit of a loose section here. Oh, I hit the tree. I want you to listen to the chug as I come through here. I tried to get it to chug even more than it should have. Here we go. Let's do that one more time. Pretty good. Plenty steep there. I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell. Stay. But this section's actually pretty dang steep for no run in. Plus, it's really loose. I kind of tried to chug it down into the bottom there and it almost stalled, but that was more me than anything. Let's move on, get a little more climbs, a little more switchback action now that we're in the woods. We just made our trek through the mountains, hiking, setting up the camera, filming a little bit. We got into the woods after the riverbed and really started to feel what the bike is about, right? So I'll just tell you right now, the engine characteristic is very much of that of a Sherco. It reminds me a lot of the Sherco. The way it feels, the way it sounds, the way it tracks. I don't know if you guys remember, I've tested the Sherco. I rode the Sherco in 21. It was a great bike. The biggest thing that I've always felt on the Sherco is it, in my opinion, probably tracks better than any bike. It just has such a low tractable form where it will just pull you along. Again, the Sherco is a 6-spring traditional clutch. I kept kind of mentioning that as we've gone through this. This is also a 6-spring clutch. So it has a very similar characteristic where it doesn't like to be ridden on the clutch a lot. And you know, you let that thing out and you let it chug and it can do it. Does it chug as low as the Sherco, like that ability to not stall, right? It's very close. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Sherco, but it's very close. The carb characteristic is what I love, you know, and you know, I think just the way that this bike runs, you know, obviously it's very, it has so much snap, and that comes from that carb. That's just that characteristic that carbs give you, where an electric, I shouldn't say electric, a TBI or TPI system is very, the power, I guess you would almost say it's progressive. It's very, it puts out what you put in, and it's always kind of the same, and you'll run into the same little hiccups here and there. With this, it feels, you know, it feels like a carb. They're snappy, they're fun. There's a lot of pop. It feels like it has a lot of high end. Whenever I need to like give it that like yacht to pop over some little log or something, it's just there, which is really cool. On the bottom inside, this is where I wonder about that 38 mil. Like, it's a 38 millimeter key and carb. I think for the majority of riders, the 38 millimeter is going to be awesome because it pulls hard. It's really fast. You can feel the power of it. The 36 is going to be less powerful on the top, but possibly chug a little bit lower. So I actually have a 36 millimeter key sitting at the house, so I might change it out and do a side-by-side test later on, right? After I put more time on it. Does it chug as low? I bet you with the 36, it probably would. So, you know, is that a characteristic of the 38 mil? You know, I can't tell you. I'm not really sure if it is, but it's very close to being able to chug as low as a Sherco. Like I said, the Shercos probably have the best, most tractable feel to them. Now, that being said, the clutch on the Sherco is probably my least favorite clutch. It just, you know, when I was riding the Sherco, I was changing plates once a month, which is a challenge. And now there's a couple aftermarket brands that do an aftermarket clutch that's awesome. I'm not sure about aftermarket on this. That being said, do I think this clutch is going to be able to handle 6 months of hard enduro? I'm not sure, I'll be honest. I think it feels like a traditional 6-spring from my experience. The 6-spring clutches that I've put time on, which is the Sherco, the you know, previous Rieju, this Rieju, and the TM. All of those have a traditional 6-spring clutch, and I will say, you know, it's like I'm not 100% if the 6-spring is as good as the Belleville. It's just the way it is. The Belleville washer, the Belleville spring, it gives you more feel. It feels like it's smooth. It makes the bike a lot smoother. When Beta went from the 6-spring, that's another 6-spring that I ran, went from the 6-spring to the Belleville, I loved it so much. It's like, it's just better. So hopefully that's in the future for Rieju. Honestly, it's a really fun bike. I adapted to the chassis really quickly. It felt really solid. I was able to just get on it and feel pretty dang comfortable right off the bat. The biggest thing that was the difference for me was the clutch and obviously the carburetor, but the carburetor I'm actually way more into than a TBI. The clutch, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep grinding and see if this thing can handle it. Now, in between this section and the previous section I filmed, there was actually a pretty big space of a lot of switchbacks and just like, and I'm like, I'm gonna put some heat into this thing. So I really was pushing hard and really putting a lot of heat into the engine, into the clutch. It didn't seem like it was slipping. It didn't seem like it was getting any louder. So that's a good sign. That to me means that if you probably keep the oil fresh, the plates will be just fine. You know, I don't know. I have spoke a little bit to Colin at Power Chicken Off-Road about the clutch before I even rode the bike. And he actually has a little bit of a protocol with using certain widths on the steels and the frictions. And changing up the steels and the frictions might be the move later on. So maybe that's something that we do as well. Another thing that, you know, I always get comments on is the starter. This is kind of that old school starter setup that we saw in the late 2000s with KTM. This like the exposed starter on the side that hooks in and you know, you can see there's the Bendix right there. There's good and bad with that, to be honest. Like, obviously it's a little bit exposed, but it's really easy to change when it goes bad. Now, everybody's like, oh, that's like an old school version of the starter. You can give that thing 10, somebody commented this at one point. You can give that thing 10 hours on that starter and you'll have to get a new one. I don't know about that. I'll put plenty of time, and I'm really hard on the starter because I'm always turning it on and off my bike, whether I'm riding hard enduro or teaching, right? So I'm gonna be really hard on this starter. I'll tell you right now, the KTM starter only lasted 30 hours. So the Husky starter that I've been running, right, my Husky, I had to change it at like 35 hours. So didn't last very long. The betas went a lot longer. The thing about that to me is, this is easy to change. Like if the Bendix starts going out, there it is. If the starter brushes start going out, there it is. It's super easy to change. All the new bikes now are all hidden down in the bottom, and you have to basically pull the engine to change the starter, which isn't ideal to me. And I don't know, seems fine to me. It's louder than the other bikes, but I think that's probably because of the location. It feels fine. So let's talk about the KYB. As I said in the riverbed, I really like the KYB shock. It felt really, really solid, really planted. I might add a little bit of sag. I didn't even set any of the suspension clickers on this. Felt really solid. I felt the KYB when beta changed to the KYB shock. I really, really liked it. The KYB fork, it's super solid. You know, the cool thing about the KYB forks just from the factory is they have a lot of hold up. Like you can really pound them into stuff and they just hold up really well. Even on some of the downhills, you know, I'm just kind of feeling how deep into the stroke the front forks are going, and they're just not going deep at all, but they still feel like they settle when you need it to in the riverbeds, etc. right? So I might soften the forks a little bit, go a little slower, a little faster with the rebound on both front and rear. But again, I haven't even set this thing up. I just kind of was excited and decided, let's go out and ride. Really, really solid. I'm really happy with the platform. I feel like the brakes are solid. You know, you guys know I have not enjoyed the brakes on the Husky. The Brake Tech brakes, I've changed those. They're long gone. I used Moto Master brakes. Those are incredible. These come with Nissan front and rear brakes. Nissan comes on the Beta front, so very similar to the Beta. Feels really solid. Yeah, Nissan stuff's actually really, really good. Let's talk about the looks, man. I mean, that's something that I think is kind of rad. Some people are like, I don't know about the green on the racing. You know, the Pro version is like kind of reddish. I like the look of the Alfredo version that's like all red. The green, I don't know, it's grown on me. I think it's kind of cool. It's just unique. I like a unique bike. I think Rieju's a unique brand. And to me, it's like, it's another brand in the sport. And that's what I'm so stoked about. It's like, you know, I think this is a competitive bike. 100%, just riding it the way that I've been riding it here, I feel like I would be able to ride exactly to my level right off the bat, you know, make a couple changes, and I'm pretty stoked on it. I think it's another brand, you know, it's more competition in the sport, which is good for our sport. You know, now with Johnny going to Triumph, and we see all these new brands coming in, and to me, it's really exciting. It means the sport's growing, it's getting bigger, and especially in the hard enduro side, I love that there's brands that are developing bikes for hard enduro, which I'm really happy with. You know, to me, the Rieju, you know, it used to be this like, okay, it's the leftovers from Gas, like the legacy Gas. Before Gas was KTM, it was the leftovers. But was it? because they've been developing this, they've made changes, and I think it's really cool that they're continually making changes and making the bike better. As I said, with the Alfredo version, they've changed the porting, they've changed the whole head, some sort of mapping changes, as well as putting a 36 mil carb on, so they're feeling it out. We've also heard that they've tested the TBI and the TPI, whatever that may be, you know, fuel injection side, which, you know, as I said, I love a carb, but development's development, and I think it's the direction that things go, and I love it. No matter what, I'm happy with it. You know, I always just want it to perform as good as the tried and true carb, right? So if Rieju may be the brand that comes out with a TBI system, that's awesome. You know, that could happen. But that being said, to me, again, it's another brand that's developing their product, and it's another brand that's actually putting in the work to build a bike that's competitive and another actual player in the market. So, you know, with Gas and Husky and KTM, there's 3 brands that are essentially the same bike, and you know, they're the big gorilla in the industry, and I love that other brands are in there. Beta, Sherco, Rieju, even TM coming along and trying to do their best to be competitive and have their own unique swing on things, and I think this is a very unique bike. Right off the bat, like I was like, oh, I feel comfortable on this thing. I'm excited, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you Rieju fans are excited, and I hope you guys that are thinking about Riejus go, oh, this is actually a real deal bike. Yeah, Power Chicken Off-Road, man, they got me dialed in with this thing, so make sure to check them out, and make sure you guys are following us on Instagram at IRC Moto, my personal Instagram page. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos with this bike on my Instagram at RichLarson511. And I hope you guys are enjoying the channel. Until next time, keep shredding.